everyone, welcome to Summit. If you're in the United States of America, happy 4th of July. I hope that you lit some fireworks. I hope that you did not get hurt by said fireworks. And maybe some little fountain things, had some of those snakes, just simple things, really. But I hope you enjoyed that holiday weekend. And we're rolling into ordinary time. And this week we've got a simple summit for a simple reading for a humble Savior. So 14th Sunday ordinary time, let's go. Focusing really on the Gospel of Matthew, only with this note that the first reading is from the prophet Zechariah, and this is the prophecy of Jesus coming into Jerusalem on Palm Sunday. So you might listen for that. That's a little note. But let's just hop to the gospel. Gospel is awesome. It's got that classic Jesus line, "Come to me, all who are labor and burdened, and I will give you rest." Where are you at this week? You feeling burdened? You feeling tired? Come to Jesus and find rest there, find peace there. But let's go on a little bit further, because the next line actually allows us to dive more deeply into what it means to be a disciple. "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am meek and humble of heart, and you will find rest for yourselves, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Couple things we got to know. In ancient history, there were rabbis, teachers. Jesus is seen as one of these people, but he is the master teacher, the great teacher. Said rabbis had followers. They would find people and they would say, "Come and follow me." Jesus does that with disciples. And then you would, as following that rabbi, you would follow his teaching, but then you would teach that same teaching. So the idea was that it wasn't just a person you were following, but a whole philosophy, a whole system, a way of doing things. And Jesus certainly had one, and it's God's way of doing things. But they called this system of doing things that master's yoke. So an oxen would put a yoke upon it, but the yoke is the necessary part for driving a plow, because it allows oxen to be led and directed in a certain way. So the teaching of this rabbi is the yoke you would put upon you to direct your life a certain way. And what do oxen do with a yoke on them? They plow fields, and the fields bear fruit. You get the idea. It's a deep analogy. So Jesus is saying, "Take my yoke upon you." And he's looking at other teachers who really tried to heap heavy burdens up on people for how they were to live, things that they couldn't take on, and it made people anxious. So what is the cure for anxiety then? What is the cure for an easy, restful life? To be meek and humble of heart. Humility. To be humble. To be able to know who we are as we stand before God and as we stand before others. To be able to pray to our Creator and say, "God, you are God and I am not." There's freedom in that. To be humble enough to not have to be the best, to not have to present ourselves a certain way on social media, to be authentic for who we are. That's a part of humility. Humility makes us confident in who we are, because we know who we are in front of God and what our worth is, and that's enough. Humility is this path to freedom, and Jesus is meek and humble of heart. So he says, if you want to take my teaching upon you, if you want to be like me, if you want to follow who I am, be humble. So that's the challenge for you this week, to be humble, to find ways to not have to be the best, not have to be the first, to not have to present yourself in a certain way, to not have to have affirmations to make you feel like you're worth something, because you are worth something. And to follow Jesus means to take this yoke of humility upon you, and ultimately to find rest. Sit with that. Humility is not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less. Great writers have written that before. It's not something clever I came up with, but it's true. So think of others. Think of the Lord. Know your value and your worth, and be humble this week. And I promise you, you will find rest. Enjoy the readings this weekend as you get ready for 4th of July weekend. And maybe you've celebrated already. If you haven't, happy 4th of July. And I'll see you back here next week on Summit.